Alright, so this is the help video for the figurative language assignment. This is exercise 23 and exercise 25. It has a bird on one side and a camera on the other. I'm going to start with the side that has the camera. And the paragraph says, the camera spoke for him. That doesn't sound like something that can happen in real life, so that must be figurative language. In the 1920s and 30s, James Van Der Zee photographed the people and events in Harlem, a part of New York City. At the time, Harlem was home to talented black entertainers, artists, poets, athletes, writers, and politicians. People from all over went to Harlem to enjoy its music, theaters, and night spots. Van Der Zee captured both the famous and the ordinary on film. Many years later, Van Der Zee's work was exhibited at an important museum. His photos welcomed people into the past. That doesn't sound like that's possible either. All right, so the camera spoke for him. The camera spoke. Is that a metaphor where you're comparing two unlike things without using like or as? Is it personification when you're giving human traits to something that's not human? Simile when you're comparing two unlike things using like or as? Or hyperbole, a really big exaggeration? All right, number 2. These words suggest, what does the author mean by the camera spoke for him? Him being that James Van Der Zee. So what does that mean? Find and underline another example. I'm going to go ahead and do that for you. His photos welcomed people into the past. Photos can't welcome anyone. So what do we call this example? Is it a metaphor comparing two unlike things without using like or as? Personification, giving human traits to something that's not human? Simile, comparing two unlike things using like or as? Or hyperbole, a really big exaggeration? So that's going to be number 4. And then number 5, write the meaning of this second figure of speech. What does the author mean by his photos welcomed people into the past? Because the photos really weren't actually speaking to and welcoming people into the past. So what does the author mean by this statement? All right, backside, exercise 25. Have you ever noticed that macadamia nuts are not sold in their shells? If they were, you wouldn't be able to open them in a million years. Their shells are very stubborn. Growers of these nuts say it takes 300 pounds of pressure per square inch to break a macadamia shell. Before that happens, the nut has to be dried. As it dries, the nut separates from the hard shell. Then a special machine with steel rollers breaks open the shell without damaging the nut. All right. So the first one which they give us is you wouldn't be able to open them in a million years. That is definitely not possible that you would sit around trying to open the shell in a million years, for a million years. So is this a metaphor comparing two unlike things without using like or as? Is it personification, giving human traits to something that's not human? Is it simile, where we compare two unlike things using like or as, or is it hyperbole, a really big exaggeration to make a point? What does he mean then, the author, when he says you wouldn't be able to open them in a million years? What is he saying about this macadamia nut? Find and underline another example. Their shells are very stubborn. That takes care of number 3. What do we call this example? Their shells are very stubborn. Is that a metaphor comparing two unlike things without using like or as? Personification, giving human traits to something that's not human? Simile, comparing two unlike things using like or as? Or hyperbole, a really big exaggeration to make a point? And we need the meaning of this second one. Their shells are very stubborn. Well, macadamia shells, they can't be stubborn. They don't have the ability to be stubborn. So what does the author mean then about the shells? All right, so if you have any questions, you can message me in Google Classroom. Your parents can send me a message on Bloom's, or you can email me. Remember, this is due on the day you return from your remote work.